Master Your Mindset Radio, episode 103.
Welcome to Master Your Mindset Radio, the show where we empower you to discover your true self before the world told you differently. Now for your host, Elizabeth Nader.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode. Today's subject is positivity bias and creating a positivity bias in your life. Now, this is a little bit bigger than just positive thinking. This is about training your brain to go to the positive. This is about doing it enough so that you create a bias in your brain when your brain chooses to think a thought, to react to something, that it will have a bias to go to the positive. Now, what's interesting about this concept, it's been studied a lot in psychology. When you first hear the word bias, you usually think of something negative. Certainly, you think about a political term, right? Or being biased against a group of people. You think about confirmation bias, which means we ignore evidence that doesn't support the way that we prefer to think. You think about racism, things like that. So bias tends to be a negative word. And in this case, though, it's not a bad thing. In this case, the bias that is related to positivity is actually a good thing. And it's something that's been studied, the positivity bias. They actually call it the Pollyanna principle. It's something that they've found deeply rooted in certain cultures and really amongst many people that helps people to be happier, healthier, and really just more connected in life. And it's called the positivity bias, or in some cases, the Pollyanna principle. But Oxford actually defines positivity bias in this way: a pervasive tendency for people, especially those with high self-esteem, to rate positive traits as being more true of themselves than negative traits. That's one way to look at positivity bias as well, is that when you look at yourself, you tend to rate yourself higher with positive traits than you do the negative traits. Do you have a positivity bias when you look at yourself? Not many people do. More of us need to. There are other examples of positivity bias, and they would be rooted in memories. So when you think about the first date with your spouse, for example, do you think about the good things, the excitement of that, how well you got along, or do you remember being nervous? We can choose to have a positivity bias, and if we're thinking about something that's meaningful to us, we tend to have that. We forget the negative part of it. If it's had a good outcome, we tend to have a positivity bias towards it as a memory. But what about having a positivity bias towards the future, towards the unknown, towards the possibility? It's one thing to have it towards our past, and it's interesting to study that in psychology, how people remember things, how somebody will choose to only remember the positive while someone else will choose to remember the negative. And that's what's been studied are the people who have that Pollyanna principle or that positivity bias, especially in relation to memories. You could take two siblings who grew up in the same house, the same environment, the same or very similar genetics, right? But their memories are very different because one may have a tendency to have a positivity bias towards their past and the other not so much. The other a negative bias. And as a result, two totally different memories of a similar childhood. So what does this say to us about looking forward in our life? Looking backward, we know what it says, right? We can choose to have a positivity bias towards things, or we can choose not to. But going forward, if choosing a positivity bias in our daily life can change the outcome of things that we face, wouldn't that be the choice you would want to make? If it could have a positive impact on what you experienced, wouldn't you want to have a positivity bias? Do you see the possibility that you could create a positivity bias every day? Literally, when you get out of bed in the morning, as soon as you put your feet on the ground and start your day, is it possible that you could choose a positivity bias, even knowing that you're facing some difficult things, even knowing that not everything may go your way that day, or that you have to push through some things that you don't want to have to face? Could you choose to have a positivity bias? And would that, in fact, make a difference in what you experience? And the research that they have would say yes. We see that people who choose to look at the world with what some call rose-colored glasses and other call a Pollyanna attitude, but those who choose to see the world that way have less depression, have less physical issues, have less mental health issues, have less challenges than those who do not, on their own, effectively choose to be positive, to have a positivity bias. It's not ignoring what's really going on. It's not denial of reality. It's not denial of the truth of the challenges you face. It's simply using the bias leaning towards the positive. It's a way of looking at things. It's a way of living. It's a filter through which you decide to see the world. And I would submit to you that while it has to be a choice early on, that over time it becomes the default. A bias is something that when you practice it enough, whether it's negative or positive, it has a tendency to become the default in your life. So why not choose a positive one? If you practice positivity bias in your life long enough, then your brain will go to that first and foremost. Think about the way people make assumptions about others, the biases that they hold. They don't even stop often to analyze that bias. It simply is an automatic reaction. So what if we trained our brain to have that automatic reaction, that positivity bias in relation to any challenge that we faced, in relation to just the blank slate of another day, of the unknown of what will happen, that you choose. I choose this day to look at everything positively. I choose today to have a good day. I am deciding that I will be biased in the way I see everything, and I will find a way to see everything and everyone in the positive, and even myself. That Oxford definition of positivity bias as it relates to the way we see ourselves. What's interesting is that definition says that those with high self-esteem tend to rate positive traits as being more true of themselves than negative traits. So in this case, which is the cart and which is the horse? Did you already have a high self-esteem and therefore it was easy for you to do that? Or did you decide to have a positivity bias intentionally every day and towards yourself? And as a result of doing that, your self-esteem improved. So it's hard to know which came first, right? But we know that if you choose to do that every single day and you choose to see yourself in the best light, just like you choose to see all your challenges in the best light, that bias will become the default that your brain goes to, and the default in the way that you think. You define yourself, you define your challenges, and you even define other people around you. And it would be nice as well if we tended to see the world with that. It wouldn't make the world any less of a challenging place, but it would make us feel like there is more hope for us to overcome those challenges. It wouldn't make us necessarily like everyone we meet, but it would allow us to see that there was a positive potential in everyone, in every situation, wherever we choose to saw it. So it's more than just positive thinking. It's in fact a bias. And I think when you remember that, you'll understand that it's a practice. You'll understand that it's a powerful tool. And you'll understand that the more you do it, the more you create this automatic reaction to life. And if that's how the brain works, that over time, if we think something long enough and do something long enough, it becomes automatic, then shouldn't we choose something positive? Shouldn't we be careful what we allow our biases to form in, a positive thought or a negative thought? I think we should be in control of that. And your life will change dramatically if you begin to apply a positive bias to everything that you see. So I want you to think about that term, positive bias, and decide tomorrow morning when you wake up, or even decide now for the balance of your day, whatever time of day you're listening to this, that you're going to obtain, manage, use, put on, whatever words you want to use, a positive bias towards your life, towards your experiences, towards yourself, and towards others. Have a positive bias. Let me know how that works for you. Talk to you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to Master Your Mindset Radio. Before you go, please visit ElizabethNader.com to learn more about the Mindset Maven and how she is guiding high performers to map their mindset to their message so they can effectively express who they are and why their ideas should win. Looking forward to seeing you online.